All right, everybody, get ready for a deep dive
Oh, yeah.
into the world of FCA compliance in the UK. We've got a whole stack of articles and blog posts from compliance consultants,
The experts.
and we are going to break down
Absolutely.
everything you need to know about this.
It's fascinating stuff.
It is, yeah. It can get a little,
It's a bit of a maze, honestly.
right, like a maze, exactly. So let's just start off by, like, what is the FCA? Can you give us just, like, the plain English version?
Sure. The Financial Conduct Authority, FCA for short, is the independent body that regulates the financial industry in the UK. You can think of them kind of like a referee, making sure everyone's playing by the rules and that both consumers and businesses are protected.
All right, so they're the watchdogs of the financial world.
Yep.
Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
But why should, Joe Schmo listening at home actually care about FCA compliance?
Well, because the consequences of not complying can be pretty severe. We're talking about potential fines that could reach millions of pounds.
Yep.
Millions. Damage to your company's reputation.
Oh, yeah.
Possibly even being banned from operating entirely.
Whoa.
But, beyond just avoiding those penalties, compliance actually helps build trust with your customers and promotes a more ethical, stable financial system. Everyone benefits.
So it's not just about avoiding getting, like, in trouble. It's about building, like, a sustainable, trustworthy business.
Gotcha.
Okay, so let's talk about some of the specific regulations. I know there's a ton, but what are, like, the most important ones that companies need to know about?
Well, you can't talk about FCA compliance without mentioning the Financial Services and Markets Act of 2000. We usually just call it FSMA for short.
FSMA, okay.
And it's really the foundation of financial regulation in the UK.
The bedrock.
The bedrock, exactly. It lays out the basic framework for how the entire industry operates.
Okay, FSMA. Got it. What else?
There's also the Consumer Credit Act.
Oh, right.
Which focuses specifically on protecting people who are using credit products like loans and credit cards.
Okay, that makes sense. Big one.
Yeah. So the act ensures that lenders are, acting responsibly and that borrowers are treated fairly.
Yeah, with so many people using credit now.
Exactly. And then, especially in today's digital world, the payment services regulations are super important.
Ooh, yeah, payments. That's a big one.
Huge, yeah. Because they're the ones that make sure that all those online payments and money transfers are secure, transparent, and you're protected from fraud.
Right. So, like, every time I'm using Apple Pay or tapping my card or anything, those regulations are making sure that I'm not getting ripped off.
Exactly. They're working behind the scenes, keeping everything safe.
Love it. Okay, so we got FSMA, Consumer Credit Act, Payment Services Regulations. Anything else we should be thinking about?
Well, there's a big shift happening right now with the introduction of the consumer duty.
The consumer duty, yeah, I've heard about that.
Yeah, this is a major change because it requires firms to go beyond just following the letter of the law. They need to actually act in their customers' best interests, avoid causing any foreseeable harm, and really empower those customers to make good decisions.
So it's raising the bar for what it means to treat your customers fairly.
Absolutely. It's about setting a higher standard.
I like it. Okay, so let's just say a company just decides, you know what, I don't care. I'm not going to comply. What actually happens to them? What are the real-world consequences?
Well, the FCA has a whole range of tools they can use. They could issue public warnings, they can restrict a firm's activities, or they can even completely revoke their authorization to operate.
So you could lose your license to do business.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, it could be the end of your business.
Wow.
And then on top of that, they can impose some pretty hefty financial penalties, sometimes in the millions.
Oof, all right. So, yeah, it's not worth it to mess around.
Not at all. But, like we talked about earlier, there's more to compliance than just avoiding those penalties, right? It's also about building a strong, trustworthy business.
Yeah, you mentioned that earlier. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah. When it's done right, compliance can actually become a real competitive advantage because customers are going to be more likely to trust and do business with a company that has a good reputation for ethical behavior and transparency.
It's like a seal of approval.
Right, like a badge of honor.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
You're showing that you're committed to doing things the right way.
Exactly. And then internally, having a strong compliance culture can lead to more efficient operations and better risk management.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
So it's really about creating a framework that protects both your business and your customers.
All right, I'm getting the bigger picture now. It's not just about, like, checking boxes. It's about building a company that people can actually rely on.
Absolutely. It's about building trust and integrity.
So if a company is like, okay, I need help with this, where should they turn?
Well, based on everything we've seen from compliance consultant, they seem like the go-to experts in this field.
Yeah, they've been around for a while, right?
They are actually celebrating a pretty big milestone this year. It's their 25th anniversary.
25 years. Wow. They must have seen it all when it comes to FCA compliance.
They probably have. And to celebrate, you know what they're doing? They're offering a pretty significant discount on their services.
Ooh, a discount. Our listeners love to hear about that. What's the deal?
It's a massive 25% off everything they offer, their solutions, expert guidance, access to seasoned professionals, the whole 9 yards. And get this, they're also throwing in over $9,999 in additional bonuses.
Wait, 25% off and almost 10 grand in bonuses. That's huge.
It's a great deal. It's their silver anniversary offer, and it's a fantastic opportunity for companies to really boost their compliance efforts without, spending a fortune.
So anyone listening who's thinking, okay, I need to get serious about FCA compliance, this is the time to do it.
Absolutely.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground, but I feel like we're just scratching the surface here.
Oh, yeah, there's so much more to explore.
When we come back, we're going to delve into some real-world examples of how these FCA regulations actually play out in different businesses.
Sounds good. Looking forward to it.
Stay tuned.
All right, so welcome back, everyone. Let's get into some real-world examples of how these FCA regulations actually work in practice.
Yeah, let's make this concrete. So let's say you're a financial advisor working with clients, helping them invest their money. How do all these rules come into play?
Okay, great example. Imagine you're that advisor and you're sitting down with a client who wants to invest their savings. Under the FCA's Conduct of Business Sourcebook, you have a legal obligation to act in their best interest.
Oh, wow. So it's legally binding.
Yeah, absolutely. And that goes beyond just picking investments that might make them a good return.
So what did that actually look like in practice?
Well, you need to gather a ton of information about their financial situation, their goals for the future, how much risk they're comfortable with.
So really getting to know them.
Exactly. And then when you're recommending an investment, you got to clearly explain all the risks involved, not just the potential upside.
So no sugarcoating, basically.
And no sugarcoating, no pushing risky investments that aren't a good fit.
Transparency is key.
Got it.
Yeah. Okay, so what about a bank, just handling people's everyday deposits? What are some of the rules that protect that money?
Well, that falls under the FCA's client money rules, which basically require firms to keep customer funds completely separate from their own money.
Oh, okay, so it's like a firewall.
Yeah, you can think of it like that. It prevents a bank from using those deposits for their own investments.
Right, that makes sense. So even if the bank goes belly up, my money's still safe.
Exactly. It safeguards the funds and keeps the whole financial system stable.
That's reassuring to know.
Yeah.
Okay, let's switch gears a bit. Talk about fintech, all these new payment apps and platforms. How does the FCA handle all of that?
Well, if you're starting a fintech company, the payment services regulations are going to be your best friend.
The PSR?
Yeah, the PSRs, and they cover everything from processing payments to issuing electronic money.
So it seems like the main goal there is to ensure that all this new tech is being used responsibly and that people's money is protected.
Exactly. And one of the key requirements is that you have to get authorization from the FCA before you can even launch your service.
So you can't just create a cool app and start taking payments.
Nope. You have to prove that you have the right systems and controls in place to comply with all the regulations, like data security, fraud prevention, all that stuff.
Right, you have to earn that trust.
Exactly. Customers need to feel confident that their money and their data are safe when they're using these platforms.
So it's not just about one department in a company handling compliance. It's everyone has to be on board, right?
Yeah, it really needs to be a company-wide culture. Everyone from the customer service reps to the sales team, they all need to understand the regulations and how their actions impact the company's compliance.
So it's not just about having a compliance officer ticking boxes. It's about weaving compliance into how the whole company operates.
Precisely. It often involves things like ongoing training for employees, having clear internal communication, and making sure everyone has easy access to the company's compliance policies.
Right, so a living, breathing thing.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's get down to brass tacks. If a company's serious about tackling FCA compliance, what are the first steps they should take?
Yeah, where do they start?
Well, the first thing is to do a really thorough risk assessment. They need to figure out which regulations apply to their specific business activities and then analyze, where they might be falling short.
So it's like taking stock of their current situation.
Right, identifying any gaps or weaknesses. And then once they have a good understanding of the risks, they can start creating specific policies and procedures to address them.
So there's no like one-size-fits-all solution.
Not at all. A small fintech startup will have very different needs than a big bank. And remember, this isn't a one-and-done thing. Compliance is an ongoing process.
It's like a continuous journey.
Exactly. You need to be constantly monitoring your activities, adapting to any changes, and staying informed about new regulations.
It sounds like a lot to manage.
It can be, but remember, compliance consultant.
Oh yeah, with their silver anniversary offer.
Exactly. They can help guide companies through all of this, from risk management to building a really solid compliance framework.
So for anyone feeling overwhelmed, that 25% discount and those bonuses are a great incentive to get some expert help.
Absolutely. All right, so we've talked about the what and the why of FCA compliance, but what about the future? What are some of the big trends that are going to shape this field?
Yeah, what's on the horizon?
That's where things get really interesting. The financial landscape is constantly changing, especially with all the new technology, and the FCA is always trying to keep up.
So what are some of the big trends you're seeing?
Well, one of the biggest is the use of artificial intelligence and big data.
AI, right. Everyone's talking about that.
Yeah, and these technologies have the potential to completely transform compliance.
How so? Like, give me an example.
Okay, imagine using AI to monitor transactions in real time so you can instantly flag anything suspicious that might be fraud or money laundering.
Wow, so like a super-powered fraud detection system.
Exactly. And it can do it much faster and more accurately than any human could.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But I guess new technology also brings new challenges, right?
Oh, absolutely. Take something like decentralized finance, DeFi.
DeFi, yeah, that's a hot topic.
Yeah. These platforms operate completely outside traditional financial systems, so figuring out how to regulate them is a whole new ballgame.
So it's like a constant game of cat and mouse between innovation and regulation.
Yeah, you could say that. The FCA is always trying to find that balance between fostering innovation and making sure consumers are protected.
So what else is on the FCA's radar these days?
Well, they're placing a much greater emphasis on outcomes now.
Yeah.
It's not enough for a company to just say we're following the rules. They actually have to prove that their actions are having a positive impact.
So they need to show results, not just check boxes.
Exactly. They need to gather data, analyze it, and use those insights to make the products and services better and improve their compliance processes.
So the future of compliance is going to be more data-driven and focused on real-world results.
Absolutely. But we also can't forget about the big picture. The world is changing rapidly with things like Brexit, the war in Ukraine. All of that creates a lot of uncertainty in the financial world.
Right. So how do those global events impact FCA compliance?
Well, they can lead to more scrutiny from regulators because they're trying to make sure the whole system remains stable. Companies need to be flexible and adapt to those changes quickly.
It sounds like compliance is a never-ending journey.
It really is. It's about continuously learning, adapting, and working to create a more ethical and resilient financial system.
Well said. Now, before we move on to listener questions, I just want to remind everyone about that incredible silver anniversary offer from Compliance Consultant. A 25% discount and almost £10,000 in bonuses is a pretty amazing deal for anyone who needs help navigating this complex world.
It is. Don't miss out on that opportunity.
Okay, so we've got a ton of questions from our listeners. Let's dive in.
Let's do it.
Welcome back, everyone. We've got a ton of questions from our listeners about FCA compliance, so let's get right to it.
Yeah, fire away.
Okay, this one came up a lot. How do I keep up with all the changes in FCA regulations? It feels like there's something new every week.
It's true. The FCA is always evolving, so staying informed is key. The FCA website is a great place to start. They have a ton of resources, all the regulations, policy statements, guidance documents. It's all there.
Straight from the horse's mouth.
Exactly. You can also subscribe to their email alerts and RSS feeds. That way you get notified whenever something new comes out.
Oh, that's handy. So you don't have to, constantly check the website.
Right. And don't forget about industry publications and newsletters. They often do a good job of summarizing the key changes in plain English.
Okay, so like a cheat sheet for compliance.
Exactly. And if you really want to go deep, there are always industry conferences and webinars where you can learn from experts and network with other people.
All right, so tap into those resources. Got it. Here's another question we got a lot. What are some common mistakes that companies make when it comes to FCA compliance?
One of the biggest is not doing a proper risk assessment. If you don't understand your specific risks, you're basically flying blind.
Yeah, like setting sail without a map.
Exactly. And another common mistake is thinking of compliance as a one-time thing. It's not. It's an ongoing process.
It's a journey.
Exactly. A lot of companies also underestimate the importance of training their employees. Everyone needs to be on the same page.
Yeah, everyone's part of it.
Right. And don't forget about record keeping. The FCA requires companies to keep really detailed records, so you need a good system for that.
Like a compliance diary.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it. And finally, communication is key. Make sure your team is up to date on any changes to regulations or policies.
So transparency within the company.
Absolutely. It's the foundation of a good compliance culture.
Got it. Okay, we have time for one more question. This one's for all the entrepreneurs out there. What advice would you give to a startup that's navigating the FCA world for the first time?
Don't be afraid to ask for help. The FCA world can be really confusing, especially if you're just starting out. There are lots of resources available, like consultants, industry groups, even the FCA itself.
So build that support network.
Exactly. And start thinking about compliance early, like right from the beginning, not when you're about to launch.
Make it part of your DNA.
Yeah, exactly. And document everything. Keep track of all your compliance efforts, your policies, your procedures, everything.
So if the FCA comes knocking, you've got everything ready to go.
Exactly. And finally, remember that compliance is not just a cost of doing business, it's an investment in your success.
It's about building trust with your customers, protecting your company's reputation. It's about doing things the right way.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into FCA compliance. We covered a lot of ground, but hopefully everyone listening feels a bit more prepared to navigate this complex world.
Yeah, knowledge is power.
And remember, if you need expert help, Compliance Consultant is a great resource. Don't forget about their silver anniversary. Offer 25% off their services plus almost £10,000 in bonuses. You can find them at complianceconsultant.org or call them at 0800-689-0190.
And until next time, stay compliant.
And stay curious. Thanks for listening, everyone.